Call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Davis?
Present.
Vice Chair Piani?
Here.
Chair Tombe?
Here.
Commissioner Stanek?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes from the November 1st special meeting. Looking for a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
I second.
Great. If there's no amendments, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes unanimously. Yay, exciting stuff. All right. Ceremonial matters, nobody is here for that. Postponements, nothing. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on something that is not listed in our agenda for today? No? Excellent. We are going to go ahead and move up new business item number 4, the report on the Senior Center Volunteer Advisory Council. Mary Lou.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm the president of the Volunteer Advisory Committee at the Cupertino Senior Center. We exist solely for the purpose of advising staff on member concerns. Also, it's necessary for a 501c to be in place so that our very popular bingo program can continue, because without the advisory council, we can't have bingo because the city can't condone gambling. The Senior Center Advisory Committee has been basically in effect for about 40 years. It has worked very well. It consists of a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer, and we have at least one member from each of the social groups that make up our senior center activities, including bingo, host and hostess committee, karaoke, ping pong, tennis, the better part, the front desk volunteers, kitchen workers, rhythmiers, needlecraft, and newsletter collating.
Excellent.
That's pretty much what I have to say. Do you have any questions?
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I think a big part of this started off because City Council wanted to take a look at the commission structure that's been advising them, and whether or not, the Senior Center Advisory Council should remain a council. Did we want to make it a commission again? So I know that we wanted to hear what the role is that you guys had, and thank you so much for coming in and letting us know.
At our last meeting, we voted that we didn't think we needed a commission, that we were very happy just being an advisory council.
Excellent. So that was actually going to be my question: is what was the advisory council's thought on that? But it's good to hear that. So, commissioners, do we have any additional questions?
I have a question. Do you feel like you could use any additional support, or someone from the Parks and Rec Commission to be attending, to be more in tune with what you're doing? Just anything we could do to improve the communication and make sure we're all in sync.
I think we're fine. Kim is very good about bringing guests in if we need them. She's had Jeff at some of the meetings. Christine has been to a meeting. We get all the support we need, really. The staff at the Senior Center is extremely supportive.
I'd just like to extend the invitation if you ever feel like you need anything from our commission. Feel free to bring it to our meetings, or even send us letters at any time, or work through your staff person.
Thank you.
So one last question. Can you talk about what the makeup of the advisory council is in terms of what the gender ratio is and the diversity that's on the council?
basically, our core group is a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer.
Okay.
Then we have representatives from each of the various social or volunteer activities in the senior center. One person who works in the kitchen during lunches, one person who oversees the bingo, one person who oversees the bridge. Some of the other things are the karaoke, ping pong, tennis, the better part. So we have representatives from each of these, and it's kind of in flux. Sometimes there'll be 10 or 12 people at a meeting. Sometimes there will only be 6 or 8. It kind of depends. Some of the groups don't send a representative if they're not having any problems and they don't have anything to talk about. And we meet every other month, so it's they're welcome to come anytime they want to, and any member of the Cupertino Senior Center is welcome to come to our meetings anytime.
Okay, great.
I have a quick question. So the officers and the members, are they most likely will be the senior center members, but are they all Cupertino residents as well, or is there such a?
They have to be members of the Cupertino Senior Center. They do not have to be members of residents of Cupertino. Probably, this is off the top of my head, I would guess maybe 70% of our members are Cupertino residents,
Okay.
and the rest of them come from Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, Campbell, San Jose. We have members from New York and Texas who just come to town because they want to do a special trip or something, and they get a better deal on the price if they're a member, so they join the senior center, and we never see them again.
So the last question I have is in terms of, there's a changing demographic of different kinds of seniors within the community. So what are some of the efforts that the advisory council's been making to meet those different, either cultural or linguistic?
We have, let me think, we have 2 staff members who are bilingual in Chinese languages and English, both named Karen. And then we have a couple people who speak Spanish who are on staff. And we try to be welcoming to everyone. We have a couple of new members who look as though they're going to be very active who are Indian. So in our demographics, I would guess maybe 50% Caucasian, 40% Asian, and the rest basically, is that close, you think? That in the rest would be Indian and mixed.
Excellent. Any other?
A quick question. How much of the membership is represented by 50 to 60 age group?
I would say maybe 10 to 15. I don't think it's more than that.
Okay.
People kind of come in and look around at the old folks.
Decide
they don't want to hang out with us.
Because our senior center is 50 plus, so I was wondering how many of that particular.
We've actually been kind of trying to push the younger. It's just been in the last couple of years that we've been open evenings and Saturdays, and
Okay.
that is primarily aimed at the younger generation, the people who are still working.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So as was mentioned before, if there's anything we can be doing to support these kinds of efforts and expanding, the reach and the demographics and any existing initiatives, please do let us know. And hopefully we'll be able to get, a couple times a year, just, a check-in of where you guys are at. And we would absolutely love that. And also, I know you already invite us to your events, but any new events that you guys have coming up, we would love to attend and be there.
Thank you. We hope to see you.
Excellent. All right. No more with no questions. All right. Thank you so much for coming and giving us the update.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to our old business, item number 2, which is the Citywide Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, the prioritization tools. report. And while we're getting set up, if you're in the audience and you want to speak on one of the agenda items, we have blue cards up at the front on the right-hand side. So please do fill that out. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. We really welcome any engagement.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Gail Seeds, the Park Improvement Manager here, and it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I have a very brief presentation for you, which, brief, shocking, a delightful change during this busy holiday season. And I'm here to talk to you this evening about draft prioritization criteria for potential projects that may arise in association with our citywide Parks and Recreation System Master Plan. And you received in your packet an attachment that described some mechanisms to help us evaluate which projects should move forward in what kind of priority. And essentially there is a checklist that just is a way to check whether a proposed project is consistent and aligned with our master plan goals and with the community priorities that have arisen from the outreach conducted for the master plan process. The master plan goals, you saw a couple months back, there are 7 goals as noted with these bullets. And the narrative is explains what each of the bullets is associated with, everything from conservation and connectivity, equitable access, enhancement, activity, quality, and sustainability are the broad categories that our goals, objectives, and actions are batched into. So this checklist would help us evaluate, does a project meet one or more of these primary goals? The second part of the checklist is to look at whether a proposed project is consistent with any of the 12 overarching themes that were identified as a result of our community input process. So this slide summarizes the first 6 of those themes, all about, when we have seen these before, no surprises. Another slide of the remaining 6 overarching themes that resulted from what we heard from our community. Then after conducting that kind of checklist evaluation, the second part of this is looking at when we've got a lot of great projects that warrant moving forward, how do we figure out which ones to do first, what ones might make sense rising to the top ahead of others. And the criteria that are proposed, there are 22 criteria, and they are summarized on this slide. We gave them kind of short titles just to indicate what the criterion is about. This slide indicates the first 4. And by the way, the consultant team suggested looking at these criteria and ranking on a scale of 0 to 3, whether a project, fully meets, partially meets, somewhat meets, or doesn't meet these criteria. And a couple of them, 5 of them, they indicated to us they felt are of critical importance for a project to advance forward. Those 5 criteria are underlined on these slides, and they have a little ×2. So they just suggested as a very simple mechanism for helping weight a couple of criteria that are really important, that we could just double the weighting on those criteria. So that would be a simple means of kind of sifting through potential projects. So these categories include whether we're improving or repairing a site, an asset, or a resource, improving access, improving a service level, whether we can implement a project with space that we already have. They felt that was one of the kind of key criteria. A couple more about does it encourage multiple and flexible uses, which this commission has mentioned regularly. Does it promote flexibility? Are we filling a gap in our services? Are we providing something new that the community needs or desires? Then there's the next two bullets are the only one that we split into two separate criteria. And one was about equity. Does something serve an underserved group or an underserved geographic area that's underserved by parks or recreation resources? And the second bullet is about the distribution of amenities in the system. And pardon me, it was the new service and the equity bullets were originally one big group. We broke them down because we felt they were both distinctive things that both mattered in our consideration. Another criterion is whether a project would benefit a large number of our residents. Does it promote sustainability and efficiency? Are we using resources wisely, leveraging staffing, money, partnerships, that kind of thing? Does the investment improve the financial strength, particularly of an enterprise facility such as the golf course or the sports center, where people, pay for rounds, pay for a membership? And another important criterion is about safety and use and repairing and maintaining our system to replace deficient or non-functioning things and maintain safety levels. That's obviously one we want to elevate in importance. Last couple of slides are about promoting diversity of recreation opportunities and reflecting the diversity of our community, coinciding with other city priorities that are in work plans, council goals, supporting other city projects. We're going to get some synergy. And timing is another one that can be very critical. Is the timing important? Is it important to advance a project now because it's a limited term opportunity? Or is it a kind of a gating factor for another project to move forward? So timing importance is proposed as a double weight criterion. A nearly last couple is about staffing availability, funding availability, both very important, and whether there's an opportunity to leverage outside resources and partnerships. The ease of implementation, is it something that can proceed now easily and well? Have we done the groundwork, laid the foundation for a project to be successful? And the last couple are the public support for a project and whether a project is high value for the cost or resources it takes to implement it. And these criteria you saw in a little bit different format about a year ago. They're the same criteria. And then the bottom of the slide summarizes the proposed scoring. And that completes the presentation. It reflects the materials in your packet, and we'd love to hear what the commission thinks, what your feedback is, and if there's community feedback on these evaluation mechanisms.
Excellent. So again, if you are in the audience and you would like to fill out a blue card and let us know your thoughts on this, we would absolutely love that. This is your community and our community, so. Otherwise, do we have any clarifying questions from the staff? I know, Commission, I know we're going to have a conversation about it, but any clarifying questions?
I have a question. For the criteria of public support, how is it defined how you measure that?
It wasn't defined. There wasn't a specific measurement structure put in place, but for instance, some kinds of projects in certain settings, the neighbors that are affected may have pretty mixed feelings about it. And this would be something to think about if we're proposing a particular project in a particular location. Have we confirmed that it's would be welcomed? Have we heard from the community, and particularly the people that would be users or would be affected by the project, what their sentiments are, and built that into our thinking about proceeding with a project? So it's how that would get ranked. There's probably some latitude on ranking it qualitatively, but we felt that that was something to have in our thinking as we rank projects.
Okay, if there are no blue cards and no other clarifying questions, then we can jump into thoughts and feedback. My first off, is this the order? This isn't in a specific order, right? This
No.
is just, okay, because the things that were underlined. How come the funding availability was taken and the outside funding and partnerships were taken as two separate things? Because I feel like if there's an outside grant opportunity, or if there's a partnership with like a sister city, for example, that might be time sensitive. Well, I'm just curious as to what the rationale was between splitting those, or was the funding availability specifically in reference to city money?
Yeah, the funding availability was thinking about, is there known funding to deliver a project? The outside funding and partnerships was really looking specifically at working with other agencies, a non-city agency or entity. And it's not just about money, it's about opportunities to share resources. It was more broad.
Okay. Okay, so something like our all-inclusive playground, for example, if there is money on the table from the county, that would fall under the funding availability section, or would that fall under outside funding?
Yeah, it falls into funding availability, it falls into timing,
Okay.
And it can fall into partnerships also.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that as these kinds of things come up, that they're hitting the right underlined ones. Right? Other feedback and thoughts? Questions, comments, concerns? Really?
I say it's very concise, and I mean, it's what we've been working on for the last couple of years, and you really consolidate it in a very concise manner. So I think it's well done.
So are the underlined ones supposed to be more important? Because it looks like all of them except the staffing operations have the ×2. Should that one have a ×2? Or
There are 22 criteria, and 5 are underlined, and those were as proposed by our consultant team. And we may feel that there's something else among these criteria that is of critical importance to elevate and to count higher, count more strongly. So that was something we were interested in hearing from the commission tonight. If there's anything missing from this list, if there's anything that you feel is of high importance and warrants higher weighting.
Okay, I guess my point was just on the little chart here, the staffing and operations doesn't have a ×2 next to it, even though it's underlined. So it was inconsistent.
Okay.
So it's just a
That was just an
clarification.
absence, yeah, okay. Yeah, it should have a ×2. Okay. That was just a reminder.
Okay, so I guess maybe this is also clarifying. So this is great. I mean, this is when we've been putting this together in some way or another for 2 years, right? So this is very, as Helene said, very concise after asking everyone what's important and all that. So now we have it in a chart form. So the next step with this chart form is the consultants now have a list of all the projects, and this will apply, and then they'll come back to us with like a number system. Is that sort of what's going to happen next?
This is intended to be an appendix to the master plan for use by us as a community moving forward in evaluating projects to bring forward. And you'll recall from some of the charts that came to you in the last couple of months, there are kind of short-term and longer-term tasks, actions, projects and improvements that are identified as community goals and needs, and this mechanism will help us sort what ones to do in what order.
So all of those that have come to us will come back in a chart with this applied to them.
The intention is to use this in the annual capital improvement program process. These criteria are specific to capital projects that go through our CIP program, and citywide, all capital projects get submitted. They go to the capital projects group in the Public Works Department, and all citywide potential projects are, and you remember, you get those annual presentations by our capital projects manager. So this would be used to help Parks and Rec projects be sorted and prioritized as they go into that capital program review process and get reviewed against other citywide projects as well.
So I guess there was a bit of maybe I'm unable to see this because I am incredibly jet lagged. But we talk about in our master plan goals, connection, and I remember that being the top one for most of us was connectivity throughout the city. But then when I'm looking at the this, it has improve access to an existing site and extend the trail network. Is that supposed to be the comprehensive connectivity bullet for the criterion evaluation? Is there any other section that connectivity comes up? Does it help?
That's the one that's about connectivity.
Okay.
And you know that of the, we already used the checklist and see how many of those 12 theme areas are hit and how many of our goals are hit. And the trails and connectivity and citywide connectivity are both in those two lists already. And this bullet, you know, if the wording should be revised to make that broader, please advise.
Yeah.
They're in this one.
Yeah, I see it in there. Yeah, I see it in that. I'm just I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I was hoping to maybe make it even more clear, not just
Okay.
improve access, but improve access and connectivity.
And connectivity, excellent. That
Just
can be
because
reworded.
I think especially if this is going beyond our commission and beyond our department to make it really transparent where
Okay.
that's headed.
It's good clarification.
And the other one I think I would want to emphasize is probably, I mean, I was a big supporter of the diversity component, although not just ethnicity, but also age as well, pushing that towards the top. My hesitation is that there's a lot our city already has, and to place it around, you know, available space, safety, and, well, safety makes sense, but available space, funding availability, timing, all that. I feel like some of the unique projects that were brought forward may get lost. And so I think diversity is one that I would like to see given either an underline or some kind of weight. Be those ping pong tables, badminton courts, you know, whatever.
I have a question. So, can you elaborate on the usage of total score? How will it be used? What is the criteria? Like, is there a target score that would make the project go or not go?
I'm expecting it will depend on the year, and this is not meant to be absolute, but it's meant to help the commission and the city staff involved in putting together the capital program look at whether a project warrants being prioritized over other projects that we also want to do. And the maximum points on this part of the sequencing criterion evaluation happens to be 81. If you got a top score of 3 in all of these categories, including the double weight categories.
I see.
So it probably would depend on the year and what it's competing against.
Okay.
And
The other, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
have
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So I feel like like we have the ×2 importance for timing and staff operations. But the public support should also be, I feel, should have more weightage because this is a public, parks or public products that we are going to be putting out. So public support, if we do the scoring and there's zero public support, then, so I think
Yeah.
it should have a little more weightage than it's currently shown.
Okay,
I-
that's
yeah.
what
I
we're
actually
hoping to
would
hear.
not agree with that.
Okay.
Primarily because, and I'm happy to change my mind, but primarily because when we're looking at connectivity, some people might have some issues with trails, and I don't want one person to be the cause of a, entire city not being able to connect with each other.
Oh, but there should be also positive support. Like there might be little negative support, but there could be a lot of positive support too for the project.
I think that was sort of the basis for my question of how do we measure that
Yeah.
public support? Because sometimes the people who are most directly affected, those who are closest, are more aware, and you hear
From
more
them.
negativity. But
Right.
you also hear positive things. If we can, it'll make it more important to get the outreach to a broader group to make sure that there is broad support. I mean, a lot of times, unfortunately, what I hear is some people say, well, I didn't know about this, but it's been out there. So it's incumbent on the city to really get out there and put the information out there. And maybe they have to, those who are supportive need to do some marketing and make sure that the balanced views are heard. And so if the loud views are just a few, but they're very negative, but we have to hear that if there's a greater good, we need to understand that and put that out there.
There's also certain segments of the community that are more vocal than others, and they're the ones that tend to get heard, and not the rest, like you say, that are not aware, not paying attention, or what have you. So I would kind of be resistant to that as well. So I do have a question. I know we already did the questions, but this came up. So this is a checklist for parks projects, but the other projects in the city that aren't parks related or parks and recreation related, they'll use a different checklist, or they'll use this checklist, or, so in other words, we're competing, or the Parks and Rec is competing against other projects in the city that perhaps don't use this checklist.
Yeah, that is correct. This is intended to be used to evaluate park and recreation projects that are potential capital projects. And then every department submits its capital project proposals each year, and they go through a citywide sorting process. That's quite correct.
So what is the, relationship between the tools, this first checklist, the sequencing and criteria evaluation, and then the actual CIP ranking criteria? Or is this the replacement for this one? I'm sorry if I'm not understanding this.
Yeah, there are two different tools for looking at does a project achieve our key goals from the master plan? Yeah,
Because
are
I
we
like the
hitting
new one better.
Okay, this second part.
The sequencing criteria and
Okay.
evaluation, because I think that's far more comprehensive than the other one.
I don't know if that makes it clearer, but my understanding of this is that this is an internal tool for Parks and Rec to look at all the things we would like to do, get funded, and bring forth. So this is our look at, we'd like to do all the projects, but then so would everybody else. So this is that tool for Jeff and our staff to use to bring forth to the city and to the financial people and the CIP to order in preference what we would like seen done. That's what sort of these are for?
It's essentially yes.
Okay.
Then, yeah, I would definitely, what you put together for the sequencing criterion evaluation, that sheet, to me feels very comprehensive in what was in the presentation. What we have here, this looks very like the traditional CIP approach, which is good for maintaining functionality, but in terms of growing, changing, doing the kind of innovation we need to for the master plan, I don't know if this is the document that will best support our efforts. You guys have put in a lot of hard work into all of this stuff. I like that. I like that stuff better. Yeah.
So they will use this as a.
This is just for the presentation.
Right, so internally you will use this, the scoring and the sequence thing, what is it called? The sequencing criterion evaluation, and once the project has been picked, then you will come with this, the CIP.
Where does this fall in, I guess, is the real question.
Oh, you're looking at attachment B?
Yeah, the
Parks and Rec Commission capital improvement ranking criteria.
Okay, that attachment is as requested by this commission about a year ago when we first brought these criteria to you. And Chair Tombe and Commissioner Wilson, you were members of the commission back in early 2015 when Director Atwood brought forward screening criteria for Park and Rec capital projects.
So the goal is for this one to replace
Yes.
this one? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
As long, that's what I was clarifying, and that's what I
Yes,
wanted to
absolutely.
ensure happens. I love it, great,
That is our proposal to you.
Okay. So this will go away?
Yes.
Okay,
That will just become part of the record, the historic
Okay.
record.
okay.
So then, I guess the question still is, then, the new sequencing criterion evaluation, it doesn't directly relate to ranking it against the themes. So where does the ranking with the themes, or is there one? How is that evaluation, melded in?
Yeah, originally, this was structured that any proposed project should meet one goal and/or theme at a minimum, and that the more it met, the more strongly it supported the goals of our master plan and the key themes we heard from our community. So that was kind of a screening mechanism, and now it's just informational, really. It's not, there will be a score there, but it's informational in that if a proposed project hits 6 out of 7 of our big goals, that tells us something about what its importance might be.
Do you think it's important for us to rank order all of the criteria? Not just give 2x to the ones that do?
That could be. That would be more complex, and it can be done. We
Is
were
it
really
helpful? If it's not helpful, then we don't need to do it.
I think what would be most helpful is hearing from the commission if there are any criteria missing, any that you think are wrong and should be thrown out, or if there's anything else that should be double ranked. That would be the most, that would be really helpful feedback.
I think the other thing I would add is the sustainability and efficiency.
Yes.
But to times
Oh,
two,
times
in
two.
addition to the
Okay.
diversity, the
Yeah.
sustainability, I think we're lucky with the kind of city that we have, and that we're very technologically advanced, or can be, and I don't see any reason why our buildings shouldn't be top of the line and not destroy the world.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to make sure that we incorporate the scores on the total goals addressed and the total priorities addressed, and somehow make that part of it.
Okay.
Is it, and then we're just missing it, or?
She would like that to be part of the way they are ranked. Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think those things are important, so I don't know if that's,
Aren't
How
those
did-
kind of included in here, though?
well, some of them are, but not all of them. So, I mean, are there, 3 different scores that it gets? One's the total goals addressed, one's the total priorities addressed, and one's the, sequencing, criteria and evaluation? Or do the goals and the priorities just kind of get pushed to the back, when you're doing these other numbers. I don't want to lose sight of those things.
It was my
They're-
understanding
they're
that these were
reflective of-
incorporated in
Yeah,
here.
they're reflective of
Which is
goals
what I-
and priorities.
So, but if there's something that is missing, like I was talking about access, so like access would be access and connectivity, because that was something to me that was standing out, that wasn't visible in this, but what else do you see? Because if I'm looking at this, we have a lot of these reflected.
That's kind of like you.
That's, yeah.
I think all the goals.
Although I think the nature isn't.
Yeah, I don't think nature is.
Unless you say repair and improvement, because it's repair and improvement an existing asset or natural resource.
I don't know, maybe you can put the little icons next to each one, and maybe, you know, one like
Create bike walkable
distribution
pathways,
can,
that's
there can be
access.
several things that,
Distribute park
you
is
know, it
distribution.
reflects all these different themes or priorities from the community. I don't know.
Well, there's
I
the
think we're-
Cooper, yeah,
I
right.
think we're, yeah.
Well, those are,
I
things were
see.
all there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, though. That's why I'm just going through and making, triple
Well,
sure
yeah,
that
so
they're
there's like
reflective.
Cupertino's unique character and identity. Is that,
But what does that,
don't know
that would
what
look
that
at,
means.
yeah, but that would probably be
Diversity,
diversity or new service or opportunity, right?
But maybe you can put that little logo next to that bullet point.
Yeah, there just
And
has to
then
be a
maybe
tactical way
they
to,
have another logo that's on the different one, or maybe one repair improvement has 4 logos, or.
yeah, I mean, the
that
goals are,
reflect
the goals are
community
how we all agreed. But there's still, it's like, we need a tactical implementation tool, which is what the sequencing criteria is. So if there's something that's missing, then let's make sure that it's in the tactical implementation of said master goals, because can't necessarily, I think the master plan goals end up getting really subjective if one person is just looking at them. So if we have like numbers that we can attribute, I think the nature one might need a little, what do you think?
But then have we prioritized these community priorities? I mean, is that something else that we have to throw in there? They're the
good question.
community priorities, but is there one that's like, has a higher priority than another? That gets complicated.
How does that play in? So we know that this is the priority, this is one part, but then we have the community priorities and we have the master plan goals. So how do those all feed in? Or is it supposed to be that this is the tactical implementation of the community priorities and the master plan goal?
That was how it was structured by the consultant, saying that anything that is proposed really should hit a goal and/or a theme before it moves forward and gets scored. That was the original thinking.
Okay, so it's like the big filter and then it goes down.
Yes, and that was how it came to you
Okay, cool.
a year ago.
That works for me, as long as it's hitting those filters, then
Yeah.
that's fine. How do you feel?
Yeah. Yeah, so that we keep it in the front of our minds, that it, does it support
Okay.
arts in our community? And we're looking at those things specifically before it ever gets there, and then it bubbles up.
The only thing I would then add in community priorities is empower teens or youth, and we're an age-friendly city, so that should be in there as well.
So would you put teens, youth, and age friendliness kind of in a single
Yeah.
category? Because it's about age ranges in our community. Okay.
Exactly.
So what do you need from us? Is this something we vote on?
That's great
or just the
feedback.
feedback?
And does this commission concur that the diversity item and the sustainability item warrant that stronger weighting also? That was brought up. Does the commission as a body concur with that? Yeah.
Basically, outside of me, does anyone else agree that either?
I guess I have a question. So I don't agree or disagree. I don't really care. I think after looking at this, it touches lots of the things we've talked about, and it is tactical, which is inclusive of all the other things. And really what we're looking for is a tool to help us look at how to prioritize this. And I think actually once we score it, we'd probably be happily inspired to know where to go with their sets of things. So we could look at this again after it's scored, because I have a feeling it will fall out similar to the needs we've been talking about for a year or so. But so the question is, would adding more categories times 2 make this more complicated? I think simplicity is the best.
I don't want to start adding.
So,
Okay.
yeah, will it skew things, or should we keep it simple? I think the things Nisha said are important, but I would also say 4 or 5 other things are important. I guess if you have to bring it down to a few things, I like the things you picked. Would it skew it to make more times 2? Or should we leave it as it is? Is that more of a question?
And you're really looking at resources that are really critical here, like land and money and
Yeah, those are really
staff time and all that stuff that's going to even say a project can move forward.
Yeah,
So I'm happy with your choices.
I just feel like the diversity piece, if we only emphasize like physical space and money, we're basically keeping city status quo, which is what typically happens if you only look at resource allocation and not concept, which is why I would really like to see diversity. I can drop sustainability, even though I'm super passionate about that. But the diversity one, I would really like to see as a times 2.
How about the equity is also kind of represent that, right?
You speak into your mic.
Oh.
Thank you.
So the equity part, where the underserved group or underserved geographic area, that would kind of cover the diversity also. If there's groups that are not
served.
catered for or unserved, then
So you almost have 2 criteria already, which
Right.
kind of doubles it.
Depends on if people consider it an underserved group. You guys don't have to
Equity
agree with
is-
me. I'm
is-
not. We can still continue.
Well,
and it's
Yeah, I
fine
mean,
this
what if,
way it is.
and the diversity, what if we broaden that one, diversity of recreation opportunities for people of different ethnicities, cultures, age groups?
I'm fine with that. What was the what's the equity underserved group thing look like? I mean, it could also technically fall under new service and opportunity, because most of the people who are in diverse communities are underserved technically and have new service opportunities. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But is there a reason that the age group thing hasn't been incorporated into the tactical? Or does that just fall under the equity as an underserved group, because teens are an underserved group in our community?
Yeah, it can be seen as captured there, or areas where we feel we need to strengthen our services because the need and demand is there and we're not offering enough.
Like I said, you guys don't have to agree, and we can keep going. I'm not going to be upset by that, but that's my bolder recommendation. But it doesn't look like there is, so there's not consensus support on that to go forward. So we can move on.
Okay.
Any other feedback on changing language or anything like that?
It's very well designed.
Very, very well designed.
Very well designed.
Excited to see how this actually plays out. And
Yeah.
if possible, and I think Judy had kind of alluded to this, it would just be great if we could eventually see what the stacked list of things for our master Parks and Rec master plan would look like if we took, the bees and the community gardens kind of already passed, but all the different projects that we've had come through and see what that looks like stacked with this ranking system. It would just be interesting, I think, for us to take a look at, which I know is probably a couple months down the pipeline, but that'd be really great to see.
Or it would be interesting to see things
An
that we've already done, and how did they
Mhm.
stack up? Would we have
Yeah.
continued to do, or what's going to be an average score, or what do we think a really good score would be? Those, I would think, those
Right.
that we're doing would, even though we didn't, you have this criteria then, so we may have gone forward with something that we just had a gut feel that we really liked, and that's what this will give us some discipline.
Around
Yeah.
it, which would be
So
excellent.
kind of an example of
Yeah.
how it would show up against this
Maybe
current project or a past project.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
How does it
Yeah.
show up against
Like
this
five,
chart?
5 or 10,
that possible?
how it would go through.
5 or 10, that's going to be a lot
5.
of work. That's a lot
Like
of
the
work.
off-leash dog part.
I mean, and some of it's, hindsight is 20/20, but
Yep.
Yeah.
might be interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be a
well,
good,
it
that'd
looks
be a good
like there's
exercise.
no other additions, aside from, well, mainly all the things I said, so, outside diversity. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
we're seeing all these big ideas and concepts come to fruition into a literal list of what we're going to operate based off of, and that is very cool and took a lot of work, so, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate your feedback and guidance as always.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, moving on to the new,
Master work plan?
the work plan.
Wow.
No, we still have the report on organizational changes.
Oh, yes. Oh, but the
I'm going to
work
pull
plan
that
is-
one up.
Work plan.
Yeah,
I wanna pull-
organizational change.
Let's do organizational change first. I'm pulling up new business item number 5, report on organizational changes in the Recreation and Community Services Department. Jeff.
Okay. Good evening, Chair and Commission. Jeff Milkus, Director, Recreation Community Services. I wanted to take just a few moments tonight to share with you the functional organizational chart and to share this with folks in the television audience as well. I think we have a copy. I think Kevin will put something on the screen. But what I wanted to do is to go through each of the kind of the functional areas so that you're able to see where they fall in, and even to be able to have a conversation about what the different elements that staff spend their time on. Although this is really more procedural than policy, I think it's important to kind of gain a bottom line. As you recall from previous conversations, the city made, and from your staff report, the city made some changes in terms of different areas that formerly were in the Recreation Department that aren't anymore. Code enforcement, emergency management, for instance, leadership training has moved. These things moved to either administrative services or to the city manager's office. In the purpose of moving code was to consolidate the different code functions. For a long time, I didn't really feel that these functions fit nicely with the rest of the mission within the department. We were kind of going different directions. So now I think this is really for the good. But what I wanted to do was go through each of the kind of 5 functions that you see in front of you and talk a little bit about each of them. The business function. We've long realized that for areas such as financial management and doing proper analysis of different options, like completing scoring criteria for past capital improvement projects, that's the kind of business function that really we need to have the bandwidth, and so we needed to create an organizational structure that would support doing this important work. So what we've done is we took and moved our assistant director from an operational role to one that really is going to focus on these really important business items. And so we're now have a steady focus in terms of our budgeting and budget process, something that we really did really more at a supervisor level. Now we've kind of put our we put an emphasis on ensuring that this is consistent, that we're vetting our budget request and our projects and the like. Our recreation marketing is of extreme import to the department. We have all of the brochures, and we offer tens of thousands of different classes each year. We're making sure that everyone knows where to go and when, and to sign up, and what opportunities there are. We share a resource with our public affairs department. Although our marketing, we have like a marketing manager or director. Actually, I think by title is a coordinator. who works at the Quinlan Community Center. So he's right there with us every day. He's our resource in our ability to really execute positive opportunities for marketing, social networking, keeping up with our webpage, branding us properly. A lot of these are, we're not just ideas that staff had come up with. These were areas where we knew we needed to improve starting about a year ago. Training and onboarding. Our training opportunities are really in need of creating a system and a structure for prioritizing which training opportunities do we bring into the city, which conferences or training opportunities, what schools are the staff able to attend and such. Contracts and agreements. We oversee something in the neighborhood, I think, of about 120 different contracts and agreements each year. These are for instructors, for bands, and the like, in different kinds of functions. These have been extremely challenging for us in order to ensure that we clarify expectations in a legal manner with our contractors, but also to ensure that we keep a strong eye out to ensure that we protect the city, and that we don't create exposure for the city or our taxpayers. And so really by consolidating and ensuring that we've got one function that really focuses on this, it's important. Policy development. It's not unusual for me to get a call as a department director to try to resolve conflict or an issue, and I look to policy to try to help me on that. But it's not unusual to pull something up from, well, I did today. I pulled up one that was passed in 2003. And not that there's not a lot of wisdom in the policies that are there, but I think it's positive. It's a real important thing for a department to do, to have a continual review of our policy and policy development. We certainly have a lot of work to do in this end. The final function is human resource. Our actions. We have at our height during the summer of employees, hundreds of part-time employees. And the issue is each one of them needs to be hired and interviewed and trained and background checked, and all of the T's need to be crossed and the I's dotted and such. Really, really important for both the employees and for the city. Now we've got a real focus on ensuring that this is consistent. In today's day and age of full employment, especially in this area, we've got to pay careful attention or we won't be able to recruit. It's difficult out there recruiting good, solid employees, especially entry-level employees, as is the case with a lot of the things that we do, such as lifeguards and such as staff members that may be in direct frontline customer service roles. So that's our business area. We know that that we needed to really focus and make some changes to make sure our business practices are consistent and correct, and so we've done that. Moving to the right on the organizational chart is the Quinlan Community Center, and this is overseen by Rochelle Sander. And if you look at the little functions, not many of them have changed, but just to make sure that you kind of understand that there's an enormous body of work that occurs here. All of the festivals you see in Memorial Park, really because of their proximity to the community center, fall under this division of the department. We look at some 60,000 individuals who come to these events. And so there's a great amount of attention to detail that occurs, whether it's just ensuring the permits are correct, making sure that the fees are received, the portable restrooms are in the right place, all of the different things that need to occur. This also includes the major community events. So the same individual that works on these is coordinating and already coordinating things like summer concerts and things like the 4th of July and you know, our successful tree lighting event that just occurred, or the Breakfast with Santa, those kind of things. So the more major events typically that occur at the community center or around, or that are you know, real large, like the 4th of July celebration, fall under that, you know, within this division. This division watches out over the annual fee waivers process. So we've got a number of these, principally these festivals that have the opportunity to where we believe that they're in the good of the community, and they're in the best interest of the city to encourage these festivals. And so, although there's a fee that's assessed, we typically take a fee waiver document to City Council each year, and that's one of the things that this person does. Facility rentals, the community hall facility use right here in this building. There's an enormous amount of use, you know, in the hundreds of opportunities to come here and use this space. Well, these are all overseen by this, you know, within this division as well. We call it our frontline customer service. It's the office in Quinlan that deals with all the reservations. They do just thousands and thousands of permits and building rental information and class registrations and answering questions and inquiry. And they're a small but mighty group, and very, very good at what they do. City Hall rentals and night attendance. So if there's a public meeting in City Hall, the folks that work in this division keep an eye out to make sure there's somebody staffed and that the building is safeguarded and taken care of. Picnic sites, park building rentals. So we've got some that fall within this division. So you can see there's quite a bit that goes on in this one division. Moving to the right is a little more self-explanatory. Our senior services. This was Kim Fry, who you saw here a little bit ago. Basically, for all of the senior services, whether it's senior travel, senior classes, the really incredible volunteer program that we've got there, the case managers and the advisory council, who you spoke with the president earlier. These things all fall under Kim Fry and her group. And again, they have a absolutely amazing senior program goes on over there. You're hard pressed when you walk in to not get run over by groups of people heading to ukulele class or something else, but really, really, you know, top notch. Outdoor recreation, youth development. This is Kim Callum's division. And this is basically our family programs area. So we call it outdoor recreation that occurs outdoors, principally at McClellan Ranch and with the Environmental Education Center, as well as what we call youth development, which are programs and activities that are designed for, you know, principally for kids. Non-fitness for the most part. These are what we typically call community education. It falls, you know, under here falls the teen program and the teen commission, and there's always new things that are coming out for, you know, to help combat the stress of our teens, and again that falls here as well. Large youth program and summer camps program, everything from technology camps to sports camps to, you know, you name it. There's many camps that happen during the summer and the non-school days. That again as well falls under this one program. And then of course preschool. You know, people don't always think about it, but we run several very successful full preschool programs, and by full they're part day, but I mean, you know, from nuts to, you know, soup to nuts and what have you. And then of course the very bottom one is the neighborhood events program, which is an enormous undertaking starting in about February or March and goes all the way through September. The planning happens in the spring, as you know, and then we go right into that program. Finally, on the right is the sports and fitness. This is Jenny Coverman's division, and it includes Blackberry Farm, the picnic rentals, the swimming pool out there, which is a, you know, a good size portfolio all by itself. And then, of course, we've got 4 park rangers that walk up and down the corridor and help with things, and they're part-time park rangers, but you know, do everything from, you know, helping to answer questions to you know, a little bit of environmental stuff to maintenance along the corridor and such. We have, of course, the sports center. It falls under sports and fitness, which is a pretty remarkably full program at times. Lots and lots of classes and activities. We've got our youth and adult sports leagues that fall under this. So we have the competitive part, and then, of course, the golf course. We have fitness events and runs, things like the Big Buddy Fun Run fall under this. And then, of course, there's some sports field permits that we administer, and we'll probably be wanting to talk with you down the road here about the way that our sports fields are permitted, and, you know, trying to gain additional access for people to use of those facilities. The final one is our swim lessons program, and it appears to be one small block on the right-hand bottom, but for 1,200 young people that take swimming lessons each summer, it's a really big deal, and it's an awful lot of work and effort on the part of staff. So this doesn't tell you all of the staffing that occurs. I just highlighted the supervisors in this case, but I hope that this will kind of give you an idea of the breadth of what's offered on almost an everyday basis. We start with the very, very young, and we go to, you know, all the way up through the age, you know, spectrum. And again, trying to organize this in such a way that makes sense. There's almost no right or wrong answer sometimes. The staff got together, and we've considered, you know, what would it be like if we put everything along the corridor all into one division, because right now they aren't. We did move in this, you know, all of our processes, put all the aquatics within one division, which was important. When you have your, you know, you have your swim lessons and your pool working for 2 different supervisors, it doesn't make as much sense to me. I don't expect to be making a lot of other changes, but as far as part of our strategic planning effort, we will be talking more about, you know, what other efficiencies are possible down the road. One thing that does lend itself to this process is a question that you can ponder, and I think maybe we can talk about it in January or February. I'd like to create a kind of a collaborative opportunity for the staff at all levels to weigh in, but really, what should the name of the department be? Should it remain as, you know, Community Services Department? Because as I've explained, the Community Services portion of what was in the department has been moved to other locations. So now we can really focus on a more traditional role. One thing I might point out here that you don't see here, you know, we see what's here, is the traditional parks improvement process or manager. Gail, who presented today to you, remains in her office and works closely with me every day. But from the capital project standpoint, she reports now to Tim Borden at Public Works, which is where she was originally. And so now we've consolidated our capital improvement, the planning functions. And so again, I really think there's a bright opportunity for us to really focus with this and not be going in different directions. So anyway, this was just an information opportunity, and I just wanted to make sure I shared it and shared it in a very public manner.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and giving us a rundown of what the new structure looks like. It's important as we continue to make our decisions to know what the layout looks like from a staffing perspective. Do we have any clarifying questions from the commission? Doesn't look like it.
Actually, I have one question. So one of the new kind of organization you've created is the business one, and you said the aquatics was merged so that the pool and the lessons were put under one person.
Mm-hmm.
What other main changes have happened, or this was how it was other than the business plan, the business organization?
More or less, the little boxes, the blue boxes on the chart, the individual functions, haven't changed very much.
Okay.
What did was the manner at which we administer the supervisory responsibilities. In other words, we flattened the organization. Prior to doing this, we had a business manager and the position's been vacant since I want to say July, while I've been thinking about where to go with this. That assistant director position was directly over the other boxes. You see, the other functions. So to put it in perspective, somebody who wanted to do something had an extra layer of approval they needed to get. Now it doesn't occur anymore. That's probably the single biggest change.
Okay.
The supervisors report directly to me,
Okay.
whereas they didn't prior to.
I see.
And again, flattening the organization is something that I thought was pretty important, for us to do. It just happens that we still have that other management position, and the question is, can we operate with one less? Then, of course, my argument is we should. Save the taxpayers the money. However, I'm not convinced that we don't have another location for that other full-time equivalent position. It could be in any number of locations, on the chart where we know that we're lacking or challenged. One of those, could have been, there was some discussion that maybe we needed another position at the senior center. There's been discussion about potentially the neighborhood events becoming, using that FTE and looking to fill it there instead. There may be the opportunity down the road, maybe 4 or 5 months here, we realize, wait a minute, maybe we still need to have, another supervisor, another manager. So we'll save the money for now, and we'll figure that out as we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think we have any blue cards from anyone, so discussion points. I had a quick question. I was just curious why we pulled the block leaders program out, because that was actually a really direct way that we were able to connect with a lot of our neighborhoods with the different initiatives that we've started. And I'm just curious, and will we still have access to them with the ease that we did before?
Yes, as a matter of fact, none of the employees that moved actually moved their offices. So the block leader supervisor, Laura Lee, still remains in her office there at Quinlan. And in fact, I saw her, spoke with her earlier today. We still have access to work with her on this, on different topic areas. She'll be working directly with public affairs in much of the same way that that our marketing coordinator does.
Okay, so hopefully with our new marketing function, we'll be able to connect directly with public affairs in a more formal way, and then it'll be distributed out.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
it's working actually
Okay.
very, very well.
Cool, sounds good. Any other questions, feedback, thoughts?
So right now, the way, if a person has to go rent few properties in city, they have to go with different supervisors or, so that functionality is not yet put together. Like you have to go from place to place to place and deal with, is that going to ever come together? Like there's one stop shop where you can get every facility rented.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, because staff have been advocating to take a vacant position in the Quinlan Community Center that's a building attendant and actually make it a facility coordinator position. We haven't completed our process. There's, in any kind of municipal human resource action, there's always position descriptions to write and to analyze and to look at work levels and make sure everything's equitable. But that's part of the discussion right now, is what would it be? How would that work? At the same time, some of the functions are different from department to department. And it's important to me, not department to department, division to division. It's important to me to respect some of those differences. In other words, at the senior center, the process to rent a room might be very, very different than what it would take to rent a ball field or a space. But you're right, having a one-stop shop in as much as possible has certainly been been championed by, by at least one of the supervisors and some of the staff at this point. But it's an interesting idea, and we're just not there yet.
Okay.
Great. All right. With nothing else, we're going to go ahead and go to old business, item number 3. That's the 2018-2019 draft work plan. I am not going to be here on January 10th. So can we just make sure that and I believe we don't have quorum for the 3rd. The 3rd of January? You're not here. Are you here? Oh, are you here on the 3rd?
Possibly, yes.
Oh,
Are you here then?
yeah.
Are you here, Jeff?
I think we said that it was like right after the winter break, that would it be too soon to?
Okay, it's more of a staff.
Yeah,
question than us.
can we still have it on the 3rd?
I'm going to look over to our kind of our clerk for the commission, Kevin, because we'll need to go through the process in keeping with the Brown Act to ensure that we post on time and such. Just to remind you that that the City Hall and the community center and other facilities do close over the holidays, and as a result, there may not be an opportunity to post within that 72 hours, so we'd have to post before the 21st of this month, whatever the agenda is. So I'm looking at Kevin because he's the master, he's the keeper of this, and I don't want to commit something to him that
You're correct. It is. We would need to post the agenda by the 21st.
Is that
By next Friday.
We can make it, but is that going to be an issue for you / staff? Yeah.
I would need to check with Mike to see, because originally the commission did decide to push it out to the 10th,
Yeah.
so that was the original intent. So if we're looking to push it back now to the 3rd, we have to relook at, being able to televise and all this stuff as well as for those staff, because they were notified. Yes, and presenting, and if they
Okay.
will.
Well,
they will
if
be
there's
available.
quorum, then I won't be at that final meeting. Sad.
You mean
The 10th?
The 10th, yeah.
Still have a quorum, though, on the
Yeah.
10th, or
If the
you-
4 of you are there, then we still have quorum.
Except you, everybody's there on time?
Either date's fine.
Yep.
Yeah,
Either date's fine.
Either is fine. So whatever
I mean,
works for
we
you,
could have,
Kevin.
could you take a quick look to see if the 3rd works? Thank you. Could you take a quick look to see if the 3rd works for you and the staff? And I realize it's holiday, so maybe it doesn't, and if it doesn't, the 10th, there's a quorum. And you could just let us know.
Sure, staff will look into it.
Great, thank you. Okay, last but not least, director's report.
Okay.
Oh,
No other
wait, sorry.
comments on
Any
the
other comments on the
plan?
plan for what goes on the agenda?
I mean, maybe at this point, we need to wait. I feel like we've never gone in front of the city council, and now with the new council, I think it's important
Yeah.
that we put our
We
work
plan for
plan in
January.
front of this new council.
Agreed. We can do it can we look into doing it in January?
When's your availability? Because
Oh,
generally the chair. does that.
January 8th to the 10th, I'm not here, but I'm here every other day through end of February.
Do we have to have it on Thursday?
Or
Any of our,
Discussing this meeting or going in front of the council?
no, the January meeting. I was just, sorry, going back to the January meeting. You're not here 10th. I was just curious if we have to have our meetings on Thursdays.
well, she said she's not here 8th, 9th, or 10th, so that's Tuesday, Wednesday,
That's
Thursday.
that whole
It just
week.
makes it a lot
Definitely.
easier
Okay.
if we keep the same day
Yeah.
of the week, I
Okay.
think.
Unless we
Okay.
go a week out.
Okay,
That's 2 weeks out.
all right, sorry, go back to this.
And maybe January is the time to talk about when we go in front of the council.
I think if we
you
can
have to
get
do-
it on the books in January with city council, that would be great.
Okay. That would be the second meeting in January,
What?
I'm assuming?
Yeah.
So is that the third
It'd be
Tuesday?
the 3rd Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, 10th is a Thursday, 11, 12,
And if
13,
we're gonna-
15th, January 15th.
Yeah, but if we're going to do that, we probably want to make sure that we're really sure about what's on this agenda.
Yeah, then we'll just
or-
have to have the meeting beforehand, so you guys will have to make sure it's the 10th or the 3rd.
The 10th, we would confirm
The work plan.
the work plan.
The work
To-
plan.
So when Anisha presents it on the 15th, it's as accurate as we know it.
Cool. Yeah, so if we can check on that. Kevin, that would be great. All right, anything else to add or subtract from the January 10th or January 3rd meeting?
That's more a Jeff question. Everything good for the January? The 5 the actions for the,
I'd need to, I don't have it in front of me for January.
Here, here, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there's two other.
Two on the
items
back.
On the second page.
Oh,
It's a long.
meeting.
Yeah. So probably if you could trim something, it'd be good.
Or cap time?
Yeah,
on my
of
part?
of the 5, the one I think would be, probably staff won't be ready with is the Seavert property presentation. But the other, I'm sorry?
There's 7 items.
There's
Yeah.
2 on
There's
the
2 more,
back?
yeah.
On the back, yeah.
Okay, we can move that to February if you don't think staff is gonna be, because it's right around the holidays, or right after the
Well,
holidays.
and the nonprofit work plan update would go to February or so, or March. So, yeah, the other ones, I think,
The nonprofit work plan item update, my only hesitation is that as we push through with the rest of our master plan, our partnerships with nonprofits are gonna be key, I think. So I would hesitate to push that all the way to March.
okay.
So if we can keep it in January, I know it'll be a longer meeting, but than February. But if we can keep it between January
Okay.
and February, that would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we removed 1 out of 7, so, great. All right, any other thoughts, feedback on the January meeting? And then we'll do a deep dive in January for confirming, so I can make my presentation, depending on when council, and if and when council is available on that third Tuesday for a presentation from us. Sound good? Excellent, all right, any other?
Oh, I missed that. So 3rd Tuesday of January?
Yeah, we're gonna confirm with city council. Great, moving on to the director's report, item number 6.
Okay, great. Let me go through just some brief items that you may find interesting. Since we've last been together, of course, we had our community tree lighting ceremony. It was really, really special with the a cappella group there, and it snowed a little bit behind the community center, and I think kids had a lot of good time. I think everybody did. The next morning, we had our very popular breakfast with Santa, and that went off very, very well. So that kicked off the holiday events for us, and I just think the staff did just really amazing work again on those. To give you kind of an update on our, some of the projects that are happening, you'll notice the sign is up and working there, the electronic sign. That was the design was actually the design that council approved for use at McClellan, and the intention there is that we would take and turn our signs across the system into things with that same kind of stonework below. Very, very nice, and we thought, well, maybe we could do something a little bit more technologically savvy, and so we added the electronic part of the sign during the process to design it. And I think that's worked out very, very well. It's naturally we have, we're very careful with the protocol and, who has access to the web page where we can put the messages on. And in this community, we hope that doesn't get hacked. But in any case, I think that sign is good. But there would be a full landscaping, I think similar to what you see in front of the community center that's going to be occurring probably in the next month or so. And I think, you know, our friends at Public Works just do a great job with that, you know, that support. The parking lot we call the West at McClellan is expected to actually be under construction in the middle of January.
Nice.
Because of its proximity to the creek and such, we've conducted or completed, you know, kind of a very comprehensive amount of outreach to the neighbors. We've been very, very careful as far as ensuring that our work is, you know, inbounds in terms of the environmental considerations as well. So I think that's going to go very, very well. The community garden cleanup just next door there, the existing gardens are right now planned to be, well, we use the word scraped, but removed in totality about the second week of January, so that we can be in a good position there as we go through the CIP process again. We've been working with the original project in order to bring the price down to make it more reasonable for the city. And so we should have more to, you know, tell you about in a little bit. I also understand we'll be working on replastering our swimming pool here in time for, you know, the swimming to happen but we know that we're under a kind of a deadline. We've got to be done by April so that we can get people in the water and trained and such. A couple of other things we have next Tuesday night. We have a presentation to council on the 18th, and that's to talk about neighborhood events. As you know, that pilot program, you know, was very well received, and we, you know, hope for a positive outcome when we speak to council. But we need to we need to go back to council, since we had originally said that was a pilot program, and see what their intentions are.
I'd like to write, I'm not going to be here, I'll be out of town. I'd like to write a letter to council. Is there any specific protocol that I need to do that with, or can I just send them a note and it'll go into the written report?
I think you can just send it
Okay.
to their group email, I think is the way to do that.
Okay, cool, thank you.
If you want it to be read, maybe you can, you know, because once it goes in the council documents, public doesn't hear it. So if you want to.
Do we want to make a statement as a commission in support of the neighborhood events?
I think
Yeah.
that would actually be really beneficial
Yeah.
to do.
I think we've
That-
already,
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine, but I think we've done that, right?
Mhm.
Haven't we done that as a commission, and then that was passed on to council, or that's what you're
Yes.
going to pass on
It
when you present?
it was, and I will make that point to them. It's also in the staff report that's posted on the city
Oh, okay.
webpage.
Okay.
Okay, so,
that's fine
so
then.
if we were to also do individual letters, we could reference that commission support.
Okay, great, will do.
Okay. Earlier that day on the 18th, the Santa Clara County will be, the Board of Supervisors will be meeting and talking about the all-inclusive playground grants that you remember we applied for. I'm more than optimistic because we are on the list there with a very positive staff recommendation to be funded. We'll see what happens. The next step after that meeting will be, you know, council then will have to make a decision, given all the other priorities, you know, which direction they would like to go with that exciting project. There's a potential that we could be funded for all 1.8 million in that process.
Is there any value in having attendance at that meeting from our
Oh,
commissioners?
I would say absolutely. I will
Is
be
staff
there.
you're gonna be there?
Yeah, I will be there. It starts at 9, but I think we're number 31 on the agenda or something like that.
Are we,
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're in touch with Joe's office?
Yeah, we've received some information
Okay.
from the staff at the staff level, and then we now post it on their webpage is the staff report and everything else that goes with it. So
Okay.
So just the presence of commissioners, is that something beneficial or?
Well, I can tell you that the last round, they did have discussions, and they did actually change the awards from what the staff recommendations were. So it's hard to say. It's a, you know, it's their process, and I just feel very lucky that they've considered us, and Gail did an amazing job, Ms. Seeds, who you heard earlier, in writing the grant proposal, and I feel very optimistic with it at this point. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Can you post somewhere or send out to us that where the meeting is and?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll send you the staff report as well as
Yeah,
the
that would
time
be
and the
good.
place
Yeah.
and the agenda. For it. We can do that.
Just a quick question. Does this grant come with any kind of time limit or?
Yeah, it has a sufficient amount of time for us to build.
Okay.
I'll have to get back with you exactly what it is.
Okay. Just curious if the
Yeah.
council has a different priority and we give this grant and then, you know, okay.
Well, I believe we will have to accept it, but the construction timeline
Yeah, that could,
has some out years to it.
okay.
And I hesitate to say because I need to look at it. I don't want to give bad information.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's see. The next couple of quick announcements, again, as I had alluded to, December 24th until January, or through the 1st of January, the city, more or less, and especially the Quinlan Community Center is going to be closed. The 7th through the 13th, the community center will close again for a week, and this is because we're doing something a little different. We've consolidated many of our longer-term maintenance functions. So we're going to do what's called a maintenance close, where we'll come in and, we'll close, and our public works folks will come in big numbers and just go from one end of the building to the other, fixing many of the things that we've had to work around to get to. This is not unusual for these kind of facilities. We do it in the sports center, for instance, as well. Let's see, I think that's everything with one exception, and that's that just as a heads up, you may have seen council's activity or action with regard to the commission item that they had been talking with, and that Jackie Guzman had come and spoken to you about, and Katie Nomura, and they had what I thought was a very positive conversation with you, and you gave lots of really, really good feedback. Well, unfortunately, we believe that there were some of the other, or a few of the other commissions that didn't have the same level of opportunity to comment, and specifically as it related to that, the code of, or the code of ethics. As a result, Katie, I believe, will be coming back to each commission to kind of do one more check-in. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up. She'll be on the agenda here shortly, in the next couple of months. Maybe as item number 8 in January, I don't know. But just to make sure before, we go any further, that everybody's input is absolutely heard and the outreach is correct.
Excellent.
That's all I have,
Great.
other than happy holidays.
Do we have any shotgun updates from commissioners?
I
Excellent.
think we all went to the same thing. Although I did just want to mention about the tree lighting, it was fantastic, but also the partnership that you had with the Cupertino Historical Society to do crafts there and have the museum open and decorated for the holidays. And I just wanted to say that's a nice partnership that you have there.
Thank you. Oh, absolutely.
And another positive about it was you had this great group of people singing instead of us. So it was really, all in all, a wonderful event.
You have no idea how great that is.
Wonderful. All right. Well, with that, I adjourn this meeting at 8:34 p.m.